Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Master of None here. The End of Dragons beta is ongoing and I jumped in immediately to try out the Mechanist. Same as last time, I will be mainly discussing the feel of the spec for general PvE and not necessarily how viable it will be in various endgame modes, since first of all, I don't know enough to make that call, and second, numbers can and probably will be changed anyway. I will also not go over the base mechanics of the spec itself, since I already did a video summarizing the livestream of all three specs. To put it blunt, I loved it. It plays exactly how I hoped an engineer with a giant mech would feel. I also really liked how the different traits change the weapon on the mech itself. I really wish more traits would interact with skills as directly as this, since it makes them way more interesting to me and you can actually notice a big change when switching stuff around. I started out in Easton, just running around in the open world, getting a feel for the different skills. I have to say, the mace surprised me a lot. It was way more enjoyable to use than I had expected. Having a ranged stun and a leap makes the weapon quite versatile. I especially enjoyed it paired with the shield for projectile reflection and double CC. It felt quite strong in PvP as well, but that is not the topic of this video. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that one. After the short, aimless run around in the open world, I decided to do some tier 1 fractals. For this, I switched to the support traits and equipped some suboptimal diviner gear. Honestly, I'm not sure if some trait is bugged because I was literally puking out alacrity. Looking back at it, I could have probably been in full berserker and still provide permanent alacrity, fury, regeneration, protection and a good chunk of might to everybody. The synergy here was that every time me or the mech provide a barrier to someone, it would also pump out alacrity. I don't think this trait currently has an internal cooldown, so it was actually kinda crazy. As soon as I went into fractals, I also started experiencing the expected jankiness that comes with AI controlled pets. When going from platform to platform on Skullwald, the mech would just randomly stay behind, sometimes poured up to me, sometimes not. In hindsight, I could have just recalled the mech since it was basically at full health anyway, and thus would have only gone on like a 10-second cooldown, but I forgot about that mechanic completely and thought that by pressing it, it would go on the full 100 seconds, which would have been very punishing. Another thing that I found a bit awkward was that there was no attack order button. It's fine when you start out the fight and have all the skills available, since you can just mash F1 and the mech will attack your target. But after that, it just kind of does what it wants and you have very little control over it. At the very least, I would hope that pressing any of the mech abilities, even if they are on cooldown, would change the target of the mech. I also wish that there was some ability to customize your mech in terms of looks, by having a couple of dye channels or something. We are talking about Fashion Wars 2 in the end, and the mech has definitely a very defined look that won't go so well with a lot of the outfits. Let's talk about the utility skills that the Mechanist gets, the Signets. I think they fit the class really well, keeping the theme of having a simple design that just feels good. I especially liked using the projectile dome, not necessarily for the projectile part, but for the barrier that it pulses, and thus alacrity if you take the corresponding traits. The elite Signet Jade Buster Cannon felt incredibly underwhelming. It's really slow to get going and seemed to miss quite often, and when it finally hit, it didn't do the damage I was expecting it would do. Moving on to the elephant in the room, the removal of Toolbelt Skills. I personally liked it, if ArenaNet manages to balance the spec around it. However, I would not be surprised if a lot of engineer mains are very unhappy to lose the Toolbelt skills. Paradoxically, it might be a similar situation to the Mesmer Elite spec Virtuoso. A lot of non-Mesmer players enjoyed that spec, while it didn't seem to appeal to the majority of Mesmer mains at all. Make sure to let me know your opinion on this in the comments down below. I think it's great if an elite spec manages to do just that. To me it means that it succeeded in changing the flavor of the profession so much that it appeals to different types of people. It's a way better approach compared to Catalyst, which just feels like a Elementalist Plus spec. The Mechanist had me truly consider for a moment if I wanted to switch mains to my least played class in the game, the Engineer. I probably won't switch in the end, just because I'm scared that the grenade kit will be meta again and I never enjoyed using that kit in PvE. But I definitely want to level a new alt and get it ready for End of Dragons. To sum it all up, I love the mech despite its jankiness. It felt like a powerful companion, a bit how I hoped ranger pets on Untamed would feel. Which based on the limited time I had with it, I don't think is the case at all sadly, but that's for another video. It was super fun to pick between the different traits and try out different mech configurations. There is definitely room for improvement with the couple points I mentioned, but to me, this is the most fun I've had with the new elite specs so far. These are my first impressions on the Mechanist after the first couple hours of gameplay. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.